What's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome to REI Madness. Hopefully everyone is as excited as Ian and I are to get started. So we originally were going to launch this event this upcoming Monday, right, Ian? We were going to get everything rocking and rolling started next week. And there was a ton of requests, after we talked to people that said, hey, we're doing this really cool event. We've got a lot of different experts and a lot of different niches. They were like, well, let's get this thing on the road. So today we've got Team Self-Storage. No better way to start off than to start off with self-storage. So little confession for everybody. My company has never lent on, and I don't personally own any self-storage facilities as of yet. So I'm actually excited to learn a little bit along the way as we go through some of these expert panels.
Yeah, man. No, it's super exciting. I'm sorry. I was trying to get as many shares out there as possible because this event is only going to happen with group interaction. So those of you out there that are watching, let us know where you guys are watching from. It's always good to see where everyone's coming in from. If you guys have any questions for the presenters on self-storage, it's a very unique asset class. And if you have questions, pop them in the chat. We're going to try to get to them throughout the conversation. If not, we're definitely going to hit all the questions at the end. And I don't think I want to waste much time on the open because I want to get right into it and talk to our storage investors. So if we can bring them in, and have them give a quick background of who they are and where they are from. Real quick before we do that, Jay, I forgot you have the sponsors.
God, already, buddy. Yeah, we'll bring the slide in. We'll bring the slide in real quick. Obviously, Ian, you want to just say where the donations are going through real quick and just run through.
Yeah, so if you guys check out reimadness.com, you can make a donation. All proceeds are going to go to the Metro Burn Foundation, which is near and dear to my heart, and a few of the presenters, not today, but on some of the other teams next week. The Storage Rebellion, Mike Wagner, made a generous donation along with the Breeding Group and Studio A Staging and our few other preferred sponsors. So we appreciate all that. If you guys get any value out of this event, go to reimadness.com. Feel free to donate. And we look forward to bringing you as much content as we possibly can. So with that being said, you guys want to introduce yourself, who you are and where you're from?
Sure. Go ahead, Ken. We'll start with you. Is everyone's have Ken on the top left hand of the screen like I do?
Yeah.
Perfect. So we'll go Ken, Terry, Mike.
Man, I appreciate the honor of being in the top left. I'm Ken Holmes. I live in Columbia, South Carolina, and I'm married with 2 sons. And I've been in real estate all my business life. Started as an appraiser and then got into buying some rental property. And then in 1995, I think it was, I paid the whopping $395 to go to John Schaub's seminar in Vegas and got into flipping houses and really got into learning from seminars and conventions and the whole world of that we all live in now, learning from each other and going to all these things. And so it's just been going on since then. Mostly I've been flipping houses for years. I've tried all kinds of different genres. About 3 years ago, I met the other top corner there, Mike Wagner, and got turned on to self-storage. And once I really got my first deal, I've been honing in and concentrating on that ever since.
Terry, you want to introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from?
And I was just looking into Ken's eyes and enjoying hearing his backstory. I appreciate you guys having me on. It's great to be on here. Ken and Mike actually are the 2 main reasons that I got into storage. They're both coaches of mine in different areas, Mike being primarily storage and Ken business and lifestyle stuff. And so I've been investing in real estate for over 13 years and had a really successful real estate business back in Baltimore. I mean, over those 13 years, we've done somewhere between 700 and 800 transactions, mostly wholesales, probably over 600 wholesale properties alone, and had been doing about 10 or 15 flips a year for the last couple of years, and then started to build a rental portfolio. We had a big team, and it was a great business. It was really lucrative. And I really enjoyed it, but having a big team and having that operation that I know a lot of guys in the business are really striving for now is great because you can leverage those resources, but it's also just a lot. And getting to know Ken and seeing his journey, following Mike and getting to know Mike both as a friend and a mentor, I just saw a simpler path to create assets and wealth And, part of me was like, hey, I could do both of these, but I don't think we give ourselves full permission a lot to just dive in and go after something. And I think I brought this up when I was talking to either you or Jason before. If I wanted like a clean switch and just to kind of start. And if I would have done storage without kind of closing down some other stuff I was involved in, it would have given me permission to fail or lean back. So yeah, I've had my first facility for almost a year now, and it's been going great. We're looking for 1 to 2 more ASAP. So far, it's been a great business. I thought Mike and Ken were lying to me, but it's been pretty easy so far.
Yeah, man. And you're on the road now looking for a facility. But the man that brings us all together, the man that I have the most hair envy in the world for, and the reason I think that most of us are even involved in storage, the storage rebel himself, is Mike Wagner. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, man. Jason, Ian, I appreciate you guys having the three of us here. It's always fun to talk shop. Long story short, I've been in real estate since about 2007. Started like many do, doing what's now called the Burr method with small multifamily, anywhere from 1 to 6 unit buildings. And really over the course of a couple of years, we did okay, but I wasn't getting where I wanted to go fast enough. And so I decided to pivot into the world of storage. Much like Terry, I burned the boats when I arrived on the island of self-storage. I quit a job that required 6 years and 3 degrees to get to buy a storage facility that was losing a couple grand a month. So if you do the math, it was a 6-figure pay cut all pay cuts are in the wrong direction, right? But I knew that if I didn't have that parachute, I would have no choice but to succeed. And as they say, the rest is history. We've been doing the storage thing for about 10 years, and it's incredible, man. I love storage. I love the life that it provides for us, and I love teaching other people the ins and outs of it all.
Mike, let's start with you with one of the first questions. I think you're probably the best one to maybe answer this now. So what do you think originally attracted you the most to self-storage? Like, why was it so appealing to you?
Yeah, it's a great question. And for me, it was a couple things. One, the fundamentals are the same as all the other stuff I was doing, right? As far as rental real estate goes, whether it's apartments or whatever, you're buying these assets, and then the idea is to own them and rent them out for more than it costs to own them, optimize them, and then either keep them for cash flow or sell them. So all the stuff that I had learned in residential rentals applied to storage, except all of the things that I liked least about residential apartments seem to be either non-issues or much smaller challenges in the world of self-storage. For example, nobody can legally live in our storage units, so it's not hard to get people out when they don't pay like it is, especially, that was true back then, and it's even more true now when you look at eviction and foreclosure moratoriums and all that craziness. And so I certainly preferred that. And then the simplicity of it all, just the idea that instead of having apartments with drywall and sinks and toilets and HVAC and everything else that can break and needs to be fixed, we've got metal walls, metal roofs, metal doors, and a concrete floor. And you take those two differences, as well as some others that I won't go into mentioning here, and we get an income to expense ratio in storage that's 30 to 35 cents on the dollar, as compared to 50 to 55 cents in the multifamily world. And so that extra 20 cents, I think Ian is the one who said this at our last retreat. It makes storage the most forgiving asset on the planet. And as a guy who screws up a lot, I appreciate that forgiveness, right?
Yeah, and I think storage is a forgiving business model for a few of these reasons. And I think that's the reason, Terry, you're on the road right now trying to find deals, and that's something I'd like to jump right into. You've alluded to why you got into storage, but when you're looking for deals out there, like, what are you looking for? Like, right now you're out driving for dollars. Like, what's the best way if someone's like, hey man, I want to get involved in storage? Where would they even begin? Because it's kind of like one of those asset classes. Even when I was like, oh, this guy's got, well, you didn't have long hair then. I was like, oh, look at Wagner. He just randomly finds a storage deal. Like, that's crazy. Like, I didn't even know you could find these things. And here we are now, and it's like a hot asset class. So what do you do to find storage deals?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're actually traveling south, so we're kind of combining. That's one of the reasons I like storage, is I get to combine the lifestyle elements of we travel down south and visit our family. I mean, that's where we're trying to invest. So the first thing I would do, just like in any asset class, is figure out where you want to invest. I see a lot of deals that are in the Midwest and the Northeast, and I just don't have any interest at this point in time in investing there. And it is an asset class that can take you all over the country. And I found in the early stages when I was less honed in, I would look at deals that were in Missouri or Indiana, Ohio, and I was just getting really like all those markets are a little bit different. And granted, storage has some elements that are the same, whether it be the demand, the cost of construction and so forth. But to hone in has been, the more I've honed in, the more I've been finding deals that been able to kind of figure out what fits in my buy box, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, what exactly am I looking for and how does it fit? And it allows me to qualify and disqualify deals a lot quicker. And tying off of what to look for, primarily what I'm looking for is I'm following, again, Mike and Ken's model of looking for properties that are mom and pop run, properties that we can go in and add management, technology and automation that they're not doing now. And that's really where you kind of get a boost in value and just exposure even to the market.
Right. And Ken, well, actually, since Terry's down there penetrating the northerner down into the south, which I know you hate.
Can you say that again? Penetrate?
Penetrate.
Let me put you.
Yeah, but either way, Ken, so Terry's down there in the south. He's looking for a deal. And, he alluded to the fact that, you're looking for mom and pop type facilities. Right. What's something that's like a key indicator if you're driving by one or you're looking online? Is there something that's like a red flag or should I say like a green check mark that you're like, dude, this thing's wrong with this facility, and I know there's a chance that I can increase value.
Right. The two easiest are, does it have a website, and is it on Google My Business? Is it on Google Maps? Any of us in almost any business would do that regardless of the business, and yet a lot of these facilities built in the 80s and 90s just never went there. They've been old school the whole time. And so that's a really good indicator that it's being run in the old school way. You talk about comparing asset classes, back when we were buying houses and apartments and all that kind of thing. How do you increase the value? Well, you're spending a lot of money and running contractors to make it look nicer and all that. Whereas in storage, many times there isn't that much contractor work. It's more of a business fix. It's more of bringing a business into the 21st century with technology, which is a whole lot easier than running contractors.
Nice. Ian, any follow up on that?
No, I mean those things all make sense to me. It's something I'll ask all three of you. And I know we said we didn't want to do this, and it could get real confusing. But maybe Wags or Ken. But like when you're looking at storage, something that I've noticed is you're looking at the underlying real estate asset, right? But you're also operating a service type business. So how do you value something like that you can mend these two things together? And what's more important to look at, the service aspect, or is that an operational thing, or the underlying real estate asset? And I think it's really unique. I don't know, Wags or Ken, if one of you guys want to answer that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's not a matter of either or. We got to look at both, right? Clearly, these properties, first and foremost, we're buying them for the income stream. But to Ken's point, when we're buying these extreme value add properties where the income stream is either not favorable or in some cases almost non-existent, we have to kind of counter that valuation method with a look at what the real estate is. And so we can just use our knowledge of what it costs to build, price per square foot wise. If we optimize it, what would it be worth price per square foot wise? And we can then use those two distinct valuation methods to hone in on the number. But bottom line always is it's the income stream ultimately that we care the most about.
So you guys specifically are worried about, in the end, the NOI and a capitalization rate based on NOI. Is that a true statement?
Yes.
Okay. And for someone that's getting involved in real estate coming from the single family world, I don't think, and I was a single family guy for a really long time, is that I don't think enough people take the time to value what their actual capitalization rate is on their single family real estate. And then when people look at commercial real estate, they're like, well, oh my God, what's going on? But really, it's just a metric of what you're already doing, right?
I totally agree with that. I've been teaching real estate for a long time. And when I get a new student and they've got 5, 6, 8, whatever portfolio of houses, and I'll say, well, what's the cap rate? And they're like, well, it makes $250 a month. And I'm like, yes, but that involves your debt. What does it make if you paid all cash? In other words, are you going to go into debt, use leverage and spend the next 20, 25 years of your life paying off an asset that only makes 7%? Or are you going to do that same formula and pay off something that makes 11 or 12 that they don't even know? And so, you're preaching to the choir talking to me about that, because I think everyone should learn cap rates no matter what asset class they're in, so they can accurately evaluate what type of asset they're buying. Leverage always makes a deal make more money. Your cash on cash is always going to be better with leverage, but is the deal any good? I think we start there, and then if you want to sweeten it with leverage, great. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And this is a little bit slightly off topic, but it's weird because I feel like the single family model, mom and pop, rental properties, the barrier to entry is so small, right? Or people think it's so small, but I actually believe that over the last few years, the barrier to entry has gotten a little bit larger, and I think that's because although there's plenty of capital out there right now, I don't believe that private lenders like ourselves, banks, are just giving away capital like they may have in the past, right? In the past, potentially, hey, you find a good deal, you don't need any money. You can just hop in, and I'm all about no money into deals as well. I mean, there's obviously ways to still provide that with different layers of capital through your capital stack. But I've always felt that self-storage, multifamily, some commercial, you need to be a little bit more sophisticated to do so. But at the same time, it doesn't seem that a lot of these projects are all that more sophisticated. It just seems like potentially, they're more sophisticated, in that, and learning. And I mean, we've invested and we've lent on multifamily, we've lent on commercial, we've lent on a lot of other stuff, not just single family, and we own that stuff as well. So I see it on that side. But it's interesting. I mean, it seems like, I see the attraction to self-storage. I think it makes a lot of sense. It seems like, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I would guess that, I know hard money lenders potentially would lend on this. We certainly would if we had the right opportunities, but it seems like banks are in this, private lenders are in this. And in general, it seems like it's a heck of a lot. I don't want to say easier, because nothing's easy. We all know that, but potentially easier. And it probably seems, and maybe I'm wrong, and Terry can answer this because he is the newest, I would say, at this, but it seems that as the single family world has tightened up, let's say, there's just less opportunities. It's just harder to find good, profitable opportunities. Self-storage, and again, I don't want to say it's wide open. It's still obviously hard work, and it's still got to put in the time to do it. But I'm guessing there's still potentially opportunities that folks just aren't approaching. I
was gonna say, well, Terry, real quick, you tell what Jason's saying, right? It's like you're looking at storage, you're looking at a 20,000 square foot facility. You have all these different little boxes, these little garages on there, and it's really easy to get overwhelmed, because I get overwhelmed looking at multifamily properties with even 3 different unit sizes, and you go, oh my God, what is going on here? What's like a tip or a trick that someone can look at and say, this is a quick back of the napkin way to underwrite a storage deal, to be like, all right, well, now I understand what these guys are talking about, like a price per square foot on an annual basis. Like, what do you guys look at from that aspect?
Yeah, I think it depends on the market. And then, again, I'm following a lot of models that Ken and Mike set out. But, if you're in a more rural market, I'm looking for just quickly, what do they want per square foot? Because the rates are going to be a little bit lower than, let's say, a suburban or urban market. So if I can be under 30 or under $25 a square foot, or even under 20, for example, it kind of gives me a quick understanding of, hey, this might be a deal. And that's a big might, because I've seen, for example, my facility I bought in Georgia is extremely rural, and I think I paid $17 a foot roughly for it. But and the cost to build, we're looking at adding a building, just to give the viewers a perspective. The cost to add that building is roughly going to be between $23 and $26 a foot, once I include like site improvements, electric that I'm going to need to do, and so forth. So I'm buying that property for less than I could build it, even though, let's say, some of the components might be worn out, you know, and there's going to be some other capital improvements. But right away, I was like, man, this is a good, this could be a really good deal. And then I use Wagner's model using the GRM of what's the, you know, the price that you're going to be all in divided by the gross annual rent. And typically you're looking to be under a multiple of 4 or 5. And when I looked at mine, I think it was at like a 4.1 or 4.2. And I was being really aggressive with my rates. And once Wagner kind of tapped me back on the head and said, hey, let's be a little more conservative with those numbers, buddy. It was still higher than 4, but so far the deal has been really good. And it's given me a lot of room, as you said earlier in the show, to screw up. You know, I've done some things that might not have worked out, but in the end, the whole project has gone better than expected. And when I say we're in a rural market, we are in like it looks like a set for an old Western movie. It's just like literally in a outlying market, and the population is going down. So there are a lot of red flags that I was like, hey, this isn't somewhere that you'd want to invest. But within 6 months, we were almost completely, or 9 months rather, we're almost completely full. And we've had, every month we've owned it, we've collected more rent than any month that the previous owner had it in the last 2 years.
Yeah, we were stalking you last night. I was showing Jay because he was asking some questions.
I was like, where is this property?
Yeah. So I was showing him last night, but something I stole from Wagner. I know, Jay, you got a quick question, but is that like the replacement cost? I don't think a lot of people take that in other asset classes. Say, well, what's the replacement cost model? And that helped me buy my most recent 80,000 square foot building, the Gaslight Square property. I was like, we're getting a below replacement cost. That's huge. Sorry, Jay, I didn't mean to hijack it. Go ahead.
Let's jump into some operational stuff as well, because, you know, as someone who's mostly owned single families and lent on single family fix and flips and rentals, most of that stuff's localized, right? In general, I've always had a hard time, to be honest, understand. I mean, we don't even lend outside of our geographic area because I don't know those areas. And it seems that everyone I know that's in self-storage does not do self-storage locally. They typically do it in other parts of the country. So that was always intriguing to me. So obviously, you know, without any of you being kind of boots on the ground in those local markets, let's talk a little bit about, I guess, automation and some operations, because I'm sure there in this space there's lots of that in place. Obviously it's probably easier to automate a front gate at a storage facility than potentially have a self-service platform for rentals and flips and stuff like that. So what type of softwares are in place in general?
Wags, you want to talk about software and how Ken challenged you to figure it out?
Yeah, well, let me, I'll give you the 3-pronged remote management strategy, touch on software a little bit, and then maybe kick it to Ken to talk more specifically about some things that he does better than me as far as boots on the ground and that sort of thing. But the long and short of it is we have a 3-pronged system that allows us to run these properties all over the country. And it's made up of a cloud-based software management platform that doubles as an interface to the customer. So it's a fully functional web portal where our customers can rent a unit and pay for a unit, sign the agreements, and then through an automated process, get text and email instructions on how to basically help themselves into the facility. And for those that aren't comfortable with doing everything online, which is a smaller and smaller percentage of the population these days, but they're still there and they're customers that we want to be able to service. So we have a call center. And the key here is that the call center isn't just a glorified answering service where they take a message and then send that message to us as the owner, giving us, basically an obligation to convert the lead. But instead, our call center is embedded in the back of our website and the management software. And so they can move people in directly and take payments and that sort of thing. And then the third piece is our boots on the ground. And so this is someone local to the property. I actually prefer buying far away from home rather than close because I'm not disciplined personally enough not to do the easy work if the property's 20 minutes from my house, right? That was my experience when I owned locally. So owning far away forces me to be better at implementing these systems. And this boots on the ground guy a guy or gal that we retain to do this work is usually working 2 to 4 hours worth of work per week. It's $10 an hour work that we overpay them to do. And the beautiful thing, to your point, Jason, about why this is so much easier in self-storage than it is in other industries. Certainly people can buy rentals and manage them remotely, and they do, and they make good money. But the challenge there is that the stuff they have to outsource is sometimes very mission critical stuff, like, running background checks and credit checks and assessing the character of the tenants who are moving into their very valuable asset and that sort of thing. In our world, it's moving the couch that somebody left behind, right? And we're not running credit checks. So the boots on the ground work is truly not mission critical, if you will. So with that, I'll kick it over to Ken. Maybe he can talk a little bit about his keys to success. He's the guru when it comes to finding the best boots on the ground. And I don't even think he finds them. I think he creates them. And so maybe he can shed some light on that.
Yeah, so Mike taught me, and he's like, well, there's this job there. You got to have somebody clean some units and all that. But I'm considerably more lazy than Mike Wagner. And so I wanted to develop someone locally who would think, who would, own it and really put their heart into it. And I think I was the first in our group to actually allow that person to have access to our back end of our software and act like a real manager and not be a cleaning person or a handyman, but to be a team member. That's where I'm headed, is for them to be a part of the team. Still doesn't mean that I have to pay them, a lot of money. People work for money and then they work for other reasons. And I think being part of a team, being valued, feeling like you matter, and so having the job not be some grunt job that they do on the side, but be something they can be, proud of or whatever. I try to move in that direction as much as I can. And again, if you break it down on an hourly basis, I'm probably paying $25-$30 an hour. And then in the South, in a tertiary market, that's really good. But I want more. I want the attitude of ownership, and I want to, again, push as much work off of my plate as humanly possible, as in like all of it, and let them, give them a little rope, let them do their best, and spend more time training than doing.
Yeah, and I think, was it either you or Wags? One of you guys actually got the old owner of the property that you bought to stay on as your boots on the ground, right?
I mean,
that wasn't you. Was that someone else? I remember talking to somebody about that.
I guess Terry was that. She owned it way before.
Oh, way before. But your manager wound up staying through and through, and she used to be the owner, and then she just stayed and she treated it like it was hers, right?
She does that, and that's how I, figured this out or whatever. Terry just was that from the beginning, and then I bought my second facility. And on the second facility, I had a guy who treated it like a side job, fitting it in, whatever. And it was night and day. And I like Terry way better. I like running that way better. I was making way more money and doing less on this one. With this second one, I had a person that I did not train, did not make them really a part of the team. They felt more like a handyman, odd job guy. And so it was just obvious to me, which for me, again, being lazy and not wanting to work that much, which one was better. And so I was much more intentional on the third facility about what I wanted that person to be.
And we're not talking about Terry Royce, everybody. There's no way Terry Royce is out there checking locks. But
I wouldn't hire Terry to clean my unit.
I thought that's why he was driving around town in his minivan right now.
People all around.
Yeah. But anyway, Ken, what are some things that, because I know you're really good about this, we talked a lot about it at the last mastermind, is what some things that they do. Like, one of the things I love that you said is, like, we don't know when we're ever getting back in this little garage unit. We're going to check X, Y, and Z. Like, What are you looking for your boots on the ground to do for you?
Yeah, I mean, that example is a good one. The cleaning a unit between tenants. In theory, when a tenant moves out, they clean it and it would be ready for the next tenant. In reality, that's never the case. It's probably going to need something. And what I teach my people is that if your average tenant stays 9 or 10 months, and we've got these few days between tenants, this is our only opportunity to take care of our asset. And so we're not only going to sweep it out and all that, but we're going to, put lubrication on the springs. We're going to check everything. Anything that's broken, we're going to fix it, because we may not actually set foot in this again for another 9 months. And like anything, if you actually try to take care of the doors rather than waiting on them to break, you will have less doors that break. And so, if we go in there and the springs are looking like they're old or whatever, just throw one in, get it done. I don't want to get the call when someone has their stuff in there and have to fix it then. It's a lot easier to fix it when it's vacant. You don't have to coordinate with a tenant on how you're going to get in and do this repair. So that's just the attitude I want to take through everything, is to, again, that having my local people treat it as if it's theirs, as if they are part of the team that owns it and runs it and all that.
Makes sense. Let's go through Shane's question real quick that hopped in. I've come across facilities that check a few boxes until I compute the GRM. If the GRM is over 5, is that a hard pass? Or are there other metrics you want to see that would help that higher number make sense?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And Shane, appreciate you asking it. The fast answer is no, it's not a hard pass over 5. There are deals at 6 or 7 that very well could make sense. We have somebody in our community right now who's at like a 7.6, but the deal makes sense for them. And so the 4 or 5 is just a sniff test. That's if it's below 4 or 5, you should be excited about it and moving fast. This isn't one you look at again tomorrow. That's one you chase down now and lock it up if you like what you see. Anything above that, 6 or 7, very well might be a deal. The cliche kind of reminder is, ain't nobody spending GRM. Right? We don't deposit GRM in the bank. We deposit dollars in the bank. And that's what we're in this investing thing to do, is to create the money that gives us the lifestyle we want. So if a property returns adequate profits relative to the amount of work it requires, then we're going to explore it and maybe buy it. The generic example would be, I might buy a 6 or 7 GRM if I don't even have to put lipstick on the thing. All I got to do is basically take ownership and plug a couple buttons in and let it run. If it's a heavier lift and I've got to paint and do a massive overhaul, well, then I need to be paid accordingly, and I'm going to require that particular property to have a lower GRM, because generally speaking, the lower GRM, the more profitability you're going to find.
And for those who don't know, the GRM is the gross rent multiplier. I think Wags has some classes on it. It gets really deep. But that's for any investing. And I think, didn't me and Jason, we just did a show on this earlier this week or last week about underwriting, is that it's really easy to get analysis by paralysis, or analysis paralysis, whatever the heck the saying is. And I'd be interested to hear from Terry, because for those that don't know, Terry is, I don't want to say cautious out there. He really does underwrite, and he really underwrites good. And I want to go back to that, is like, what makes you comfortable in a deal so you don't get hung up on something like this, like a GRM 5 or a per square foot person's too high? Like, what makes you comfortable doing this to keep pushing forward? Like, what is that trigger, or how can someone work through like a problem like that,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question. It's hard to answer, give like a cut and dry answer. I mean, right. I think I remember when I was analyzing the first property that I bought in Georgia, there was a lot of red flags that popped up. It met the gross rent multiplier formula. It was at a cheap price per square foot. And I remember, not verbatim, but Wagner saying, hey, if this turns out to be a base hit or a double, how hard would it be for you to lose your money? And he's like, and if it's a base hit or a double, you're going to know the process that much better on the next one, something to that effect. And you probably say it to a lot of people that you coach, Wagner, but I remember saying that. So what I'm getting at is, after I did that first deal, I saw how things that didn't work out didn't matter that much, and how many things that I thought would take a year or 12 months or two years to happen much quicker. And it gave me, I guess what I'm trying to say, is confidence in the process. Just like if you're buying your first single family deal, doing your first wholesale deal. I mean, I remember the same thing with my first wholesale deal. It was just, after you did the first one, it was like, man. So what I'm saying is finding a deal that, to Wagner's point, is going to be, if it's a base hit or a double and your chances of losing money are almost zero, maybe it's not a home run, but it's going to get you in the game and just go. And so I think the thing is to find a deal that you're comfortable with, a deal that's profitable, and then get you in the game, whatever niche you're getting in. And that, for me, as soon as I did this one, I was like, man, 13,000 square feet's a lot. It's a good size for my first one. Now I'm like, fuck it, bring on 30, 40,000, whatever. Right. Because doing that one showed me that like, again, when I joked earlier that Ken and Wagner weren't lying about the processes and the systems and just plugging things in and making it work. So I don't know if that answers your question exactly, but I think for me, that was the biggest thing to underwrite after doing the first one. Now underwriting is a lot quicker and easier.
Yeah. I think, to add to that, if you buy right, you're liquid all the way through. You could sell it the day after you buy it, or you could do some of the work and decide you're not happy there, sell it and make money, or you could just keep on going. At any point, you're liquid all the way through, which isn't necessarily the case if you were turning around a big apartment complex or whatever, in midstream with contractors. How liquid are you going to be at that point? But self-storage is a relatively hot asset class. There's plenty of people that would take it over any step along that way. So if for whatever reason you decided you didn't want that one anymore, you're not going to lose any money. You're going to get all your money back, and you're going to make some money, and you just decided not to carry it on through the rest of the way. And so I think the safety in that allows us to push if we know we're getting it cheap. And then for some reason we decide we don't like that. We're not, no one's going to lose any money. And so that allows you to push a little harder if that,
Yeah, I think that's strong compared to the single family world. Because I would not say is the case necessarily especially in this market, with rentals and flips. And, investors are making money on residential stuff right now. They all have to be value adds, right? Everyone at the very best, you're paying investor retail right now. Most investors are paying 20% higher than what they should be paying for it. And a lot of the times they're making it up on the back end, but it works. But, if you mess up construction, you botch something, you're screwed. So that's a good point. Helen's question, will this be recording? Yeah, however you're watching this, you'll be able to continue to watch it the same way. We're streaming this on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, a bunch of other platforms, so you'll have access to it. Let's talk about a little bit like the long-term play on some of these buildings, because I'm always curious. So many people forget that, they forget to work backwards with the end goal in mind, and they're like, cool, let's just buy this property and see where it goes type of thing. Like, and everyone has different exit strategies, right? Someone's approach might be to get this thing fully stabilized and try to sell it for top dollar in a few years. Others might try to get it debt free and just keep it as a cash flow machine. I'm sure there's multiple different options. Like what would you guys say? And maybe all three can answer this if they're all three different answers, but like what's the game plan? Let's say like maybe Terry, for instance, on the one that he currently has. Like what's your game plan? I'm not sure if you've even thought far enough into the future of where it leads, and that might change, right? It might be a cash flow machine now, and in the future you might want to sell it if it appreciates. But what is? I'm guessing these aren't like shorter term types of projects where I want to get in this thing, I want to get this stabilized, and I want to flip it to somebody else, or maybe it is, or is this kind of like a legacy type of building?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I wrote down what Ken said. It's my project in Georgia. I don't have the exact numbers, but I could today, sell it probably for $100,000 or more than I bought it for 9 months ago, just off of doing the simple things. So I guess that I'm going to steal Wagner's answer that I always bust his balls for. The answer is it depends, and it.
Worst answer a coach can give, right?
Yeah.
Or the best.
But no, I mean, it's for me, I don't know. Like I would sell it. I'm always open to selling stuff. But for me, I'm trying to create cash flow right now. And I guess it's going to depend on what other deals are in the pipeline. Like if I get another deal or two in the next 6 to 9 months, I'm like, okay, well, this one, maybe instead of going through with the building, maybe now, hey, let's free up this cash and move it over here. And I think Ken's point to that, you can liquidate, unless you really screw up, you can liquidate any point in the process, usually for break even and most likely for profit, and move that money. If you were halfway through a single family rental rehab, most investors I know don't want to come in and it's like taking over another contractor's work. They don't want that. And I think that's a big advantage that I never really connected the dots on that Ken brought up. So I'm kind of looking at all assets here, or all facets here. I'm looking for cash flow for long term. I'm looking at the equity play to sell. And I know Ken and Mike have both gone through 5 or 8 deals each, turning them over. So, and that's the great thing I think about storage that Ken summed up, is that there are so many options, even in the beginning part of your project, that just you have on the table that you don't have with, a big apartment building rehab or a single family rental rehab, or even a fix and flip. If you get 2 months into that and your contract screws you, you're screwed. You got to come out of pocket for a new contractor, and you're not selling that to anybody else except an investor at a discount. So,
yeah. I think Wags and Ken both exited. I'd love to hear, because I know you guys both did it differently. Wags, you listed, and Ken, you found a direct buyer. Like, what does that look like? Like, how was it? Mike, you want to go first?
Yeah, so just to piggyback on what Terry was saying before I answer that directly, Ian, is he made it sound like it's by happenstance we have all these options, and that is absolutely true. But there's also value in intentionally creating our deals, the structures, in such a way that we have the most options possible. So as a generic example, I would suggest that the best deal is the one that you would consider a win, regardless of if you sell it for a quick flip or end up owning it long term, right? If you think of the example, if you buy it to flip it and then you can't sell it, well, now you're just the storage version of an accidental landlord, which is the guy who gets burnt out and has to sell it. But if you buy properties that you either would appreciate selling for fast money or you'd be very happy to own it, it's really hard to lose when you win, regardless of what side the coin lands on, right? So take that for what it is. Ian, more directly to your question, just as a small correction, I've never listed a property. I've never sold a property while listed. The 2 properties I sold were I was just basically approached, and to kind of carry what Terry was saying forward, I've shared with Ken before too. I don't ever remember being in a position where I wanted to sell my property, but I do get to a position where I become open to selling it. And then, Terry, plug your ears, it depends on what other opportunities are out there. Sure, I may sell my Florida property, but I've got to sell it for a premium, and only if I can redeploy that money elsewhere, because it doesn't do me any good to have $1 million sitting in the bank making 1% interest. I want to be able to move that to another opportunity where I can explode the equity again and just grow my portfolio in that way. So it's not so much about selling properties as opposed to being open to the opportunity to sell when it presents itself, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. So obviously, no one can see in the future of where self-storage as an industry or business model goes, but I'm sure you guys have thought through this. Like, go through a little bit of how potentially this asset class, self-storage in general, is protected potentially in a downturn. And I don't know if it is protected, but I do believe that a lot of folks in the single family world, small multifamily, things like that, are a little bit nervous that we're at the top. We might have believed that over the last 5+ years we've been at the top of a market cycle, and who knows where that will go. And obviously, if anyone's been around, since obviously the early to mid 2000s, and they in the residential world, that is, and they saw what happened in 2007, 2008, it probably scared them a lot. And then there's also a lot of newer real estate investors that came in 9, 10, 11, 12, and they've just been riding this wave, and they believe ignorantly that and naively that it's just going to continue to happen, just because, and especially where we are at least located, because we're in the DC metro and Baltimore metro, and in general there's higher price points. There's a lot of job stability and things like that, higher price points. But we don't have to talk about how it compares to single family. But what do you think? What do you guys think in general related to what happens if interest rates go up? more job loss, whatever the case is? Do people still use self-storage? Do they downsize houses and then move the additional contents into self-storage? Like, let's talk about that a little bit. Whichever one wants to go. I don't know who's the best to answer this.
Well, I don't mind sharing just a little bit. I had this conversation with one of my students this morning about, are we at the peak and should we keep investing in storage? Because what if things change? And my point is always, right, savvy investors can make money regardless of the market. So it's not so much do we invest given where we are and what might happen tomorrow, or how do we invest? And, the example is this. There's no doubt in my mind that at some point, the government has to stop printing money, right? And that's going to create a ripple effect through our economy. The truth is, in the storage world, since 2016 or 17, all the talking heads in the industry have been saying, we're just past peak. We're just past peak. Now's the time to sell. And they said that 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years, and they're still selling it today. They're saying it today. At some point, they're going to be right. And that's why I believe an investing strategy should incorporate an awareness of that truth, but not cause people to shy away from, to your point, Jason, an industry that is very well insulated from, relative to other asset classes, from the greater changes in the economy. Not just the asset class itself, but the strategy that Terry and Ken and I use in these smaller markets. Let's be honest, the towns we're investing in are the last towns to realize that Wall Street crashed or any other change, right? And so, and one more point, we look at disruptors. If someone were to come into the storage industry and disrupt it, like Clutter or Neighbor or any of those, that might happen. I think it's a long way off, if I'm my honest assessment. And it's a long way off from the industry and either further into the future when we're talking about small town USA, right? Chicago and New York and LA are going to get disrupted, and we'll see the writing on the wall long before it happens in Tifton, Georgia, right? So I don't know what else you guys want to share on that, Ken, Terry, maybe some of the drivers in demand that we see even in down markets.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing to me has been during this whole COVID thing, a lot of people in the residential world are really getting hurt with all the government stuff. And it has not affected our business in a negative way at all. They don't stop us from evicting, which is actually an auction, and in lien law, it's not eviction court. We're renting units like crazy. And so that has been very pleasant. I used to own a lot of rental houses, and I do not now, and I own a lot of storage units instead. And so 2020 was an awesome year for me. And I know a lot of people in the business have not had an awesome year, or are currently $60,000, $70,000 behind on rental income and stuff like that. And so I've really enjoyed that. I agree with Mike that the tertiary markets will be the last to get hit. We'll get ample warning if and when something does happen. And I'll just rag on Ian because that's what we do. But this is the reason I don't like to use debt. This is the reason I like to be all in with cash, either all my own or with equity partners. Because like Mike says, if let's say you've got one, it's free and clear, it's bringing in $10,000 a month NOI. If the market goes really bad and your NOI goes to $7,500 a month and you have no debt, well, that's unfortunate, but nobody's going down. And that's really the main reason why I like to stay away from the leverage. Interest rates have no meaning to me. So my basic strategy, Mike and Terry know, is that I like to do my first round of deals with a lot of equity partners and basically fix and flip, own it for 3 years, walk away with $400,000, and then take that money to go into the next one with less equity money and more ownership for Ken, but be debt free the whole way. And so I watch the market and I study and read my economic journals and all that, but I sleep very well at night.
That's a very fair statement, and I think by not having debt, something that makes you probably a little bit better than some other people is you're looking at your underwriting. I don't say completely different, but people sometimes look at debt not as a tool, but as a way to make a deal work, and that's probably one of the worst things you can do. Right? You need to underwrite the deal to make sure it's a deal first, and then does debt provide you the proper leverage to get you where you want to be? And it's a tool just like you're using people's equity or cash into the deal as a tool. So
and potentially he can do half as many deals and make the same amount of money.
Right.
And that's always been attractive to me with things that we, in our businesses as well.
Well, it's an interesting discussion that Mike and I and Terry have all the time. How much do you need? How much money do you need to make?
Yep.
If your average facility makes $10,000 a month NOI, if $30,000 a month suits your needs, you need 3 paid for. Well, that isn't all that difficult in this business. And so if you talk about having the end in mind, what is the real end? How much is enough? And you make a plan. If 3 is enough paid for, then you can buy these 3, sell them, put the money on these 3, boom, boom, paid off. There you are. That's not a 30-year plan. That can be a 6-year plan.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're about to have an intervention with me. We might have to get out of this conversation.
Well, listen, I see both sides of it because I talk to Ian regularly, and I do understand.
I'm sitting here talking to a lender. This is probably in the wrong venue to have this discussion.
No, but I understand Ian's approach, because I understand if you're in the growth phase, you can't grow without leverage. You're not capable of doing it, right? So I do understand. It's like, cool, let's go buy this one with high leverage, right? And then we'll do another one, and we'll now we'll take the proceeds and we'll buy another one, and then eventually you trade in 5 and then you buy 1 in cash. So or whatever, or however the metric works. So I understand it. But I am, and like I've mentioned to Ian as well, like the whole thing with where the market is right now. I mean, there's an argument that right now that a lot of people, if you can get good long-term debt at so darn cheap, now is the time to do it, because even if the value of the property, if you could pick up the value of the property 30% cheaper, 20% cheaper in 2 years from now, but you're tied in at really good debt right now, it doesn't matter. So you see both sides. And I think the important kind of the takeaway for anybody listening is, you do your own due diligence, you figure out what's right for you, what you want, what's your end game, right? Like, what do you want to do? Do you want to sleep well at night and potentially make a little bit less money with a hell of a lot less more risk, or kind of just push rub the engine a little bit for the next few years and try to just get to that that place. So yeah, I mean, I could go on and on with questions, but that I think are valuable, but we've been going for a while. Is there any other questions coming in? Is there anything else?
No, just that if anyone wants to watch this recording again, you can watch it here on Facebook. It'll be evergreen, or reimadness.com. You can find us there. Do you guys have anything else that you want to? We'll give you guys a second to tell us where everyone can find you. Is there anything else that you guys want to put out there about storage that people absolute last tip or last hey, this is why storage is the best? If anyone wants to leave us with something, please let us know.
Yeah, well, I'll do one, Ian, but I'm gonna attach a contingency to it, and that is that if any of your listeners find value in it, they have no choice but to repay us by making a small donation or a large donation. That's up to them, to the charity that you have linked at REI Madness. So here's the thing: this is a tip that saved me thousands, literally $3,000 roughly per facility per year for as long as I've owned them. It's called purchase price allocation. It's available to us in the world of self-storage because, tying it back to what we talked about earlier, we're buying an income stream and we're buying a real estate asset. Let's pretend I'm buying a facility for $500,000 that has a tax assessment of $250,000. Well, if I buy it for $500,000, my property taxes are going to double from, let's say, $3,000 a year to $6,000 a year, and I think that's being pretty conservative using the numbers. What we do in storage is we allocate the purchase price. We're going to allocate $251,000 to the assessment, so our property taxes go up by $1,000. Making it go up a little decreases the chance that anybody pokes around. Now, this is a fully legitimate, and it stands up to audit, fully defensible strategy. The other $249,000 of the purchase price we allocate to the customer list, the trade name, other business assets that aren't real property. If we do it right, the seller has no negative tax consequences, income tax consequences, that is, and our property taxes stay where they are, and there's no other negative consequences to us. So not only is that an advantage of self-storage, but for all your listeners, I just saved them $3,000 a year for every facility they buy for the rest of their life. So I figure donating $100 to the cause is probably a small price to pay. See what I did there?
Yes, very good. I enjoy that. So what's the best way we can find you guys? I know, Ken, you're one of Wagner's coach at the Storage Rebellion. So how can we find you?
That's probably the easiest way. Just come join us on the Storage Rebellion, and we've got we're always in there chatting on the forum and everything, and it's easy to link to either Mike or I, or even Terry Royce if you want, through the chat room on the Storage Rebellion.
Absolutely. You guys can check them out at All Things Self-Storage, I believe, on Facebook also, and it'll eventually get you to where you want to go into their private app that they have and forum. Terry, I know you're out on the road. We're Alabama, Georgia, wherever you may be. How can we get a hold of you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Facebook, but we actually have I know Balin's been busting my balls about the podcast, but we decided to push it off to the new year. And I have an episode with both Ken and Wagner. We're working this weekend to finalize a launch date. I think we're shooting for middle of February. We should have about 10 episodes already recorded. And the podcast is called The Self-Storage Playbook. And it's just talking with other small, mid-sized investors like ourselves and kind of going through some case studies and things like that. So you can join the group. It's called just The Self-Storage Playbook on Facebook, and there's all the live streams on there.
Awesome. And Mike, how can we find you?
Yeah, direct best way is to go to storagerebels.com. We've got a free community where we all hang out. Terry loves my domain. I have 6 other domains I can send you to if you want, but then Terry will get mad at me. But that's probably the best place. You can connect with us in there. There's a free 7-day workshop to give people an overview of the asset class, and it's a great place. I think we're 1,200 members strong as of today. And the vast majority are highly active and come from a giving mentality where they're happy to share whatever they've learned along the way.
That's awesome. We appreciate it, guys. And anybody that wants to get any more information, if you don't hear it here, jump on reimadness.com. All their contact info will be up there as well. Jay, we got anything else?
No, I think we're good. We got some other questions that are starting to come in, but maybe if you want, we can just answer them through the Facebook chat, through this Facebook comments after the fact. And actually, when you guys are done, if you want, feel free to comment, however, Facebook or YouTube, whatever, your contact information as well. So then it just kind of stays there evergreen, because the majority, we've had about, 20, 25 people, give or take, kind of on throughout. Looking over here, we've had about 300. But we'll have, in the thousands, probably 10,000 people view this over the next few weeks as it stays evergreen. So feel free to make sure you guys put your contact info down, because I'm sure people will want to reach out.
We appreciate it, guys.
Cool.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Thanks, guys.